This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
And good evening. Scott's off tonight on assignment. I am Bob Schieffer. The other shoe is about to drop in the baseball drug scandal. Major League Baseball has notified the Players Union which players it intends to suspend. We don't know how many will be affected, but the game's highest paid player, Alex Rodriguez of the New York Yankees, is expected to be among the hardest hit. Terrell Brown has our report.
Alex Rodriguez worked out in Tampa today, recovering from an injury that has kept him off the field all year. With the suspension looming, the only question now is if he will ever play again.
There it goes!
A Major League team executive tells us the commissioner's office is considering suspending Rodriguez for using performance-enhancing drugs and violating the league's integrity of the game policy. Violating the integrity of the game policy could carry a lifetime ban.
And this was a guy who was destined for the Hall of Fame.
ESPN investigative reporter TJ Quinn first reported this story in February.
It is believed by baseball, at least, that he actively obstructed this investigation. They have looked into charges that he tampered with witnesses, that he tried to get documents, possibly have them destroyed. If they've got the evidence to back that up, that adds a whole other element to this case.
In an interview for Sports Illustrated out today, Rodriguez, the league's highest paid player, seemed hopeful about his future. "I'm not giving up," he said. "I have tremendous faith, and hopefully there's a couple more chapters to this book, and hopefully there's a happy ending somewhere."
He's not the first player to use PEDs.
Sports Illustrated managing editor Chris Stone says Rodriguez has never tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs, which could lessen his punishment on appeal.
I don't think the Players Union is going to lay down and accept a lifetime ban for one of their players.
Earlier this week, an attorney for Rodriguez said he will fight any suspension by the league. The other players will face a minimum 50-game suspension. An announcement is likely by Friday, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Terrell. The National Security Agency urged Congress today not to put new restraints on its ability to collect phone records when it's tracking down suspected terrorists. But Congress had more questions than ever, and when the head of the NSA spoke to a cybersecurity conference, he got an unexpected reaction that just underlined the growing skepticism about the agency's methods. Here's Homeland Security correspondent Bob Orr.
How do we defend this country?
As NSA Chief Keith Alexander was defending the government's data collection programs at a cybersecurity conference in Las Vegas, he was interrupted by hecklers.
No, I'm saying I don't trust you. You lied to Congress. Why would we believe you're not lying to us right now?
I haven't lied to Congress.
Intelligence officials are also feeling pressure from a skeptical Congress. Democrat Patrick Leahy is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
So what's going to be next? When's enough is enough? I think Congress has to carefully consider the powerful surveillance tools that we grant to the government.
To ease some of the fears, the Obama administration today declassified 3 top-secret documents detailing the NSA's mass collection of U.S. phone records, a surveillance program first revealed by Edward Snowden. This is the April 2013 order from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, directing a phone company to turn over domestic call data. And these letters from the Justice Department to congressional intelligence committees claim the NSA follows strict rules safeguarding civil liberties. While heavily redacted, the letters say the NSA programs collect in bulk certain dialing, routing, addressing, and signaling information, but not the content of the calls. The letters also say the data collection efforts are subject to an extensive regime of internal checks and are monitored by the FISA court and Congress. Top intelligence officials, including Deputy Attorney General James Cole, again defended the programs and insisted privacy is not being sacrificed.
Nobody is listening to anybody's conversations through this program, and through this program, nobody could. No information like that is being collected through this program.
But officials did signal they're open to possible changes in the programs. Perhaps, for example, allowing phone companies rather than the NSA to retain the call records. Now, in defending the sweep-up of phone records, the government points back to 9/11. Prior to the attacks, the NSA, it turns out, intercepted 7 calls from one of the hijackers to al-Qaeda handlers. But because there was no data bank of phone calls to search at the time, the NSA now says it did not know the hijacker was already in America, Bob, and making those calls from San Diego.
Okay, Bob Orr in Washington. The Federal Reserve said today the economy slowed a bit in the past month, going from moderate growth to just modest. And the Fed said it will keep interest rates low to try to stimulate it. The economy grew just 1.7% in the second quarter of this year, but that was still better than the 1.1% in the first quarter. The government has revised the way it comes up with those numbers. And believe it or not, Lady Gaga is now part of the act. Anthony Mason has that.
The economy was stronger last year than we thought. A new formula for calculating GDP says it grew 2.8%, better than the 2.2% first reported. The recession was also not as bad. GDP fell 2.9% during the financial crisis, the new formula finds. It was down 3.2% under the old.
We are certainly changing our estimates throughout history, but we are not rewriting economic history.
Steve Landfeld heads the Bureau of Economic Analysis at the Commerce Department, which began calculating the nation's gross domestic product in the Depression. But the most recent formula undervalued creativity and research. So GDP now includes creations in arts and entertainment, like books, movies, and music. The production of a Lady Gaga album, for example, is now part of the GDP.
Why we do it is because that Lady Gaga album will produce returns beyond just the current year.
How does it feel to be part of the GDP now?
I mean, if it leads to people viewing it more as a job, then I think it's great.
Nashville singer-songwriter Jason Isbell has written music for himself and the band Drive-By Truckers.
Did you feel that you were sort of in a shadow part of the economy?
Yeah, definitely. Anytime I'd gone in to apply for a loan, I felt exactly like that because I don't know who I work for. I still don't.
You work for you.
I work for me, but I'm not going to have them call me and ask for a reference.
The government now estimates entertainment added another $74 billion to the economy last year, and research and development nearly $400 billion. Bob?
Thank you, Anthony. President Obama is trying to get Congress to focus on his economic agenda, and today, for only the 10th time since he took office, he went to Capitol Hill to do some face-to-face lobbying. Congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes is there.
President Obama wanted to catch Democrats just before Congress heads home for a 5-week break.
What's the message you're bringing to the Hill today?
Jobs, middle class, growth.
Sure enough, after his meetings with House and Senate Democrats, all the party leaders were singing from the same hymn book.
We have to focus on jobs.
Middle class job growth is key.
Jobs, 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 jobs.
The move was designed to give Democrats a positive agenda to take home to constituents during recess, to head off touchier subjects like the president's controversial health care law. It's also an attempt to claim the high ground before Congress clashes in September over funding the government and raising the debt ceiling. The president floated a proposal this week, corporate tax cuts in exchange for more funding for infrastructure and job training to spur employment. Republican House Speaker John Boehner called it a recycled, partisan offer.
Now, the only thing that's new here is that he wants to take some of that revenue and use it for more of his stimulus spending.
Democrats argued Republicans are allergic to anything proposed by the president. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid.
He's reached out to Republicans, as I've said before, so much that some of my Democrats are jealous that he's been with them so much.
Republicans say they do want to see corporate tax rates cut, but only if that's paired with cuts to individual rates. Democrats also say they want comprehensive tax reform, Bob, but in a body this gridlocked, it's hard to see how they can tackle something as complicated as overhauling the tax code.
I think you got that right, Nancy. Thank you. Another deadly crackdown is looming in Egypt. Ever since the military ousted President Mohamed Morsi 4 weeks ago, his supporters from the Muslim Brotherhood have been staging sit-ins. Well, today, Egypt's new leaders ordered the police to clear the protesters out. What happens next could well come down to the action of one man, and Clarissa Ward is in Cairo with our report.
The most popular man in Egypt was sworn into power a year ago by President Mohamed Morsi, the very man he ousted on July 3rd. General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi is now widely regarded as this country's savior for ridding Egypt of a deeply unpopular president.
Here on the streets, vendors are doing a brisk business in anything with Sisi's face on it. He is now so popular that many people are asking whether he is poised to become the Arab world's next military strongman.
Last week, Sisi called for mass protests, and hundreds of thousands turned out. We saw people fighting to get posters of their hero. Sisi claims he has turned over power to a civilian government, but his popularity has raised questions about his own political ambitions. Retired General Sama Saif al-Yazal isn't worried about that.
He will not be involved with that. He will not run for the office. Take my word.
For sure?
He told me that, personally.
Sisi already holds 3 of the most powerful jobs: commander of the armed forces, defense minister, and deputy prime minister. Today, Egypt's military-backed government ordered the breakup of the Muslim Brotherhood's protest camps. There have been 2 mass killings of Morsi's supporters in the past few weeks, but General al-Yazal said it will be the Muslim Brotherhood's fault and not Sisi's if things turn bloody.
Do you think this can be resolved peacefully?
No. I think they want to escalate the situation. They want lots of blood.
And will they get it?
I know quite well that the police would try definitely to make it the easy way, not the hard way. But I'm sure they will not do it the easy way. I'm sure they will like the hard way.
Clarissa Ward in Cairo. Clarissa, how did the Muslim Brotherhood react to all of this?
Well, Bob, the Muslim Brotherhood has said that it is not frightened by today's announcement. A spokesperson for the group has accused the government of being, quote, hungry for more blood. They argue that their protest is peaceful. They reject the accusation that they pose any kind of a security threat. And they've said that any attempts to try to disperse those protests will only harden their resolve.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Clarissa. Will Congress give students a break on their loans? Why are wounded veterans forced to get treatment in mobile homes? And everybody in the pool, and I mean everybody, when the CBS Evening News continues. As far as the government is concerned, the war in Iraq is over. Afghanistan is winding down, but the battle is not over for nearly 1 million veterans of those wars who receive treatment at VA facilities. Problem is there aren't nearly enough clinics. Why not is the question. Here's Wyatt Andrews.
Veterans deserve more.
Darren Santini is an Iraq war veteran who resents what he calls the camper, this 30-foot RV in a Lake Charles, Louisiana parking lot, which the Veterans Administration uses as a clinic. It has one primary care doctor, but no specialist.
What do you think about when you see this RV? I think it's pretty pathetic because you have guys that live here, that fought for their country, did everything that was asked of them, and they come back and they get seen in a mobile home.
Santini needs specialty care for the brain injuries he suffered in an IED explosion. But those VA doctors are either a 90-minute drive away in Alexandria, Louisiana, or 3 hours away in Houston, Texas. The VA asked Congress for funds to replace the RV with this full-service clinic, but the money was blocked.
The veterans are being put on the back burner for lack of a better term, for political reasons.
The Lake Charles Clinic is one of 27 VA facilities nationwide that Congress has put on hold because of a disagreement over accounting. Typically, the VA rents clinic space from developers and Congress pays the bill every year. But last fall, the Congressional Budget Office studied the VA's rental agreements for the first time and concluded the clinics were government purchases, not rentals. That ruling meant the VA had to count 20 years' worth of lease payments against this year's budget alone. The ruling was a budget buster and forced the VA to stop the clinics. Congressman Charles Bustani of Louisiana represents Lake Charles.
Do you agree with that ruling?
I vehemently disagree with that.
Bustani says the clinics are clearly rentals. Not building them, he says, delays medical care for more than 13,000 veterans just in his district.
We need the flexibility to make sure that the health care is local for our veterans where they need it and when they need it.
The 27 clinics put on hold were supposed to serve 340,000 veterans, most of them in rural areas where no clinic means no care. Outside the RV, former Marine Kelly Boussard said he often cancels his treatment for PTSD because of the 2-hour drive.
That means I have to find a babysitter for my kids, because my wife works. If she stops working for that day for me to go to the doctor, we lose money on that. It's too far for us to drive.
Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid wants to reverse the CBO ruling and build the clinics. House Speaker John Boehner wants to study alternate ways of financing the clinics. 9 months after Congress first learned this was a problem, the clinics are still on the drawing board and the veterans still wait. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Washington.
And we'll be right back. The House gave final congressional approval today to rolling back the interest rate on student loans. It shot up to 6.8% July 1st. Under the new agreement, the rate goes down to 3.9% for this school year. O.J. Simpson was granted parole today, but he won't be getting out of prison anytime soon. The Nevada Parole Board approved early release for some of his kidnapping and armed robbery convictions, saying he has a good prison record, but he has to serve at least 4 more years on other sentences, all dating back to his 2008 conviction for holding up 2 sports memorabilia dealers. Parts of China have suffered through the hardest July in 140 years. Shanghai had 9 straight days of triple-digit temperature. In Sichuan province, the only way to cool off was an indoor wave pool. 15,000 people crammed in, triple the capacity. One man said it was like a cauldron of boiling dumplings. That is a quote. When this woman donated a kidney, she had no idea whose life it might save. She was as surprised as you will be in a moment. In the past 25 years, living organ donors have saved or improved the lives of nearly 124,000 people in this country. Often the donor has no idea who will be getting the organ, and therein lies an amazing tale told tonight by Chip Reed.
9 years ago, Chuck Stitt's kidneys began to fail, but he refused his wife Julie's offer to donate her kidney.
So you really resisted having her do this?
I felt like it was more my problem, and why involve her?
Last year, after his body rejected his second transplanted kidney, he gave in. But it turned out his wife's kidney was not a match. So they signed up for the paired kidney exchange at the University of Maryland Medical Center. Under the national program, when they found a match, Julie's kidney would go to someone else, while Chuck was moved higher on the transplant list. Last December, he received a kidney and is now in good health.
You consider her your savior, your hero, a lot of different words?
Oh, very much so, very much so.
But in a terrible twist of fate, Julie's father, Richard Kern, had also begun to experience kidney failure. She asked the program if the kidney she had promised to donate could go to him. But under the rules, her kidney had to go to the next person on the list. In a coincidence that the transplant doctors say was astounding, next in line was her father, and their kidneys were a perfect match.
I was just flabbergasted. I've never seen anything like that in 28 years in the transplant field.
Dr. Stephen Bartlett, head of surgery at the University of Maryland, has performed about 3,000 kidney transplants, including Richard Kern's.
If Julie Stitt had not given her father her kidney, where would he be today?
Waiting on the transplant waiting list as an elderly diabetic man, there's a lot of risk for him. So she saved his life.
You decided you wanted to be a donor, and you were stubborn. You
yes.
just pushed ahead.
That's my personality. I'm very stubborn.
Well, thank goodness for that, right, guys?
Oh, yes. Oh,
she
yes.
takes after me.
What's it like sitting there having your daughter's kidney inside you?
Wonderful. I'll tell you, it's fantastic. Couldn't be better. It's like my wife and I gave birth to her, gave her life, and now she's giving me life back.
Julie Stitt says giving up a kidney to help save the 2 most important men in her life was one of the easiest decisions she ever made. Chip Reed, CBS News, Myersville, Maryland.
That's the news. For Scott Pelley, I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York.